In this video, I'm going to walk through every single piece of gear that you need to go outdoor sport climbing for single pitch climbing. So I have a list here beside me. I'm going to walk through everything. My name is Mike Vert. I've been climbing for 11 years. My whole goal on this channel is to help you get outside and climb safely and quickly. So we're gonna walk through everything here, 30 something items on this. We're gonna go through the necessary items, so the items that you literally can't climb without. Some optional items. The first thing is you need a bag. So you need something to put all of the climbing equipment in. This is a climbing specific bag. This is the Stone 40 by Black Diamond. This isn't going to be a buying guide of like what specific brand and item to buy, more so just the use case of each item. So this is about a 40-liter bag, and I really like this. It's got a brain in it because I can separate all my little stuff. When I first got into climbing, I literally just used the hiking backpack that I had. Just use what you have if you don't have the money to buy a specific climbing backpack. Generally, there is a lot of equipment you have to bring, so you want a larger backpack. Number 2 is a harness. This is the harness that I currently use. It is the Petzl Adjama, A-D-J-A-M-A. I've used lots of harnesses over the years. Usually when I was first starting out, I just bought the cheap ones. Quick note on the harness, even though this isn't a buying guide, I just had a second one handy. So this is another one that I purchased that I actually don't like using. And the reason I don't like using it is because it's really small. It's thin, so it doesn't have much padding. But more importantly, it's really small around the hips. So when you take a hard fall on it, which you do when you're sport climbing sometimes, or you have to hang for a while, this one's just super uncomfortable. But you need a harness. Okay, this one is a helmet. Once again, I'm not gonna do this for everything, but I just have 2 of some of these items, so I'm just gonna show you the difference. Boom. So these are my 2 helmets. Be extra safe, look for the UIAA certification. Then it's gonna be certified to the standards. So this is a hard shell helmet. This one is a lot lighter. It's mostly styrofoam-esque, like this really tough styrofoam with a little bit of a hard shell on top in case you have rocks that hit you. I like this because it's really hard to break. Inevitably, I'm gonna dent this and it's gonna get super worn down, but I've been playing around with both. So bring a helmet. Next one is Quickdraws. So depends where you are climbing, how many of these you need. Rule of thumb is that you bring enough Quickdraws to clip every single bolt, and then you bring 2 extra so you can use them at the top as an anchor. So say there's a climb that has 5 bolts and then the anchor, I'm gonna bring up 7. I could go deep on Quickdraws. I have a whole video on the buying guide for Quickdraws, so I won't go super deep on them. If you don't know how many Quickdraws are at your climbing area, a good place to start is just by getting 12. That covers most climbing areas because they'll have 10 bolts plus the 2 for the anchor. Some areas that are tall might require more. Like I've used 16, 17 draws on some things, but those are edge cases. Actually, I wanted to mention this too. This is one of the first things I bought ever. This is a 60 centimeter nylon sling. And what this is great for is when you are getting this gear ready, it allows you to clip all of your equipment to one thing. When you get to the crag, you can just pull out and then you have everything clipped to it. Climbing rope, I've used many climbing ropes over my career. If you're gonna start with anything 60 or 70 meter length with 9.5 millimeters in diameter. You can go on either side of that a little bit, and what you're looking for is a single rated rope. There's other weird ropes called double ropes, twin ropes. When you're just single pitch sport climbing, everyone just uses a single rated rope. You can just Google 9.5 millimeter single rope and look at all the options. I like Mammut for the company that I buy my ropes from, personally. Next one, belay device. A couple options for a belay device. I'm assuming you know what a belay device is. It's what you control the rope when you're on the ground for your climber. These are the 2 ones that you'll see the most often. This is the most common, what I would recommend if you're just getting into climbing, which is a gree-gree, because it's an assisted braking device. So it will assist or look out for you if you're not super diligent on the holding of the brake strand. If you don't know what these words mean, don't worry about it. So that's 1. Number 2 is, this is kind of the older school device. This one is an ATC guide from Black Diamond, but there's lots that look just like this. Basically, the rope feeds through here and you clip it along with that, and then that acts as your strong hand. But you need a belay device. I won't go into the specifics on those. That'll be another video. And as well as the belay device, you need a locking carabiner to clip to it. So for the tube style, I would actually use something that's a little bit different than this. I would use a HMS or a pear-shaped carabiner with a rounded stock just so it rolls better. For the gree-gree, I do use this exact carabiner, which is an offset D, or everyone just calls them Ds mostly, but officially it's an offset D, locking carabiner. And the reason I use that is because it doesn't shimmy around as much. I used to use a pear-shaped carabiner, but it would always like migrate to the side and be awkward. So locking carabiner and belay device. If you plan on setting up a top rope anchor, So sometimes when you go sport climbing, you just climb to the top, clip in 2 quick draws, lower, someone else climbs it, they clip those quick draws are clean, and come down. If you are going out for longer and you have basically a longer day out and you know that there's going to be a lot of people climbing on the same route, or you're not going to be inspecting the anchor a lot, it's a whole nother video on when to make that decision. But if you know what a top rope anchor is and you plan on setting one, then you need the equipment to do that. Now, depends how you've been trained on setting up your top rope anchors. I have videos on that too. But the basics, you want a 120 centimeter sling. You want 2 non-locking carabiners, and this will allow you to clip to the fixed gear. And then you want 2 pear-shaped HMS, ideally with a rounded stock, which means the inside here is nice and rounded. That way the rope can flow over it well. So with just these pieces of equipment, you can set up many of the top rope anchors you can need. Now we're into the optional stuff. You might find this funny, but I actually call climbing shoes optional. Because, so when I first started climbing, this will be a quick story, but when I first started climbing, I didn't have climbing shoes. I learned outdoor climbing when I was in college. We were learning lots of sports. Couldn't afford to buy everything that was on the lists. So I just started climbing Nikes, like literally shoes like this. I just freaking was climbing rocks, which is hilarious. Basically, if you're climbing over like 5'5", 5'6", which you probably will be, grab you some climbing shoes. You definitely don't need to blow the bank on it. I know a lot of indoor climbers get like super fixated on performance shoes. One thing to keep in mind when you're choosing which ones you bring out, if you have multiple or you're trying to buy some, you don't want them to be too tight, especially if you're in a warm area. Your feet swell when it's warm out, so you just don't want to have something that's super painful. And the routes outside, depending on your climbing gym, can be a lot longer than the indoor climbing. You just wear your shoes longer. That's climbing shoes. Chalk bag. I actually don't have my chalk bag on me, but I assume you know what a chalk bag is. It's a little bag that fits chalk. Layers to keep warm outside. 2 things that I always bring, even when it's warm out, honestly. There's very few times I don't bring these 2 items. Layers, there's base layers, which would be something like a t-shirt or a thin layer that's against the skin. Then there's a mid layer, and then there's a shell. So this is my mid layer. I've used lots of different things with this. When you're first starting out and maybe you don't have the budget for like a expensive mid layer, that these can get really expensive. You can just bring a sweater. Ideally, the sweater is not fully cotton. If you can get something that's polyester, maybe a fleece, maybe an old wool sweater. When it absorbs water, it still has thermal properties. So if it's wet out and starts raining, so that's what the polyester synthetic wool will allow. This one, just to let you know what I have, this is a Arc'teryx Atom. I got it secondhand for $100. So that is my mid layer. If I'm not bringing a mid layer, like say, I'll give you an exact example. So I was in Las Vegas, which is notoriously hot. It's a desert. Awesome climbing there. We were going out, it's like a 30-degree day, and we went to this place called the Black Corridor. You can look it up. Because it's in this little corridor, it gets basically no sun and a lot of wind. It was cold. It was like very hot out if you look at the temperature on any app or weather station, but it was really cold. So, and the wind was contributing to a lot of that. So having a really thin rain jacket can be super helpful in those instances. Most people own a rain jacket. You don't have to get like a special one. This is just extra thin, so it can pack down small. But having a rain jacket, if you're not gonna have any other layer in your backpack, is great because it's really small and it also can act as a thermal layer because it kind of keeps your heat in. If you have to choose between one of these 2, it depends on the day, but yeah, just bring them both, basically. Bring a rain jacket, bring a sweater, ideally outdoor-based rain jacket, and ideally a polyester sweater. Headlamp. This is one that maybe some newer climbers don't consider, especially if you plan to be back before the sun goes down. I've planned to be back before the sun goes down many times and found myself stuck outside. A headlamp, if you don't know, is something that goes around your head and then acts as a head torch. The biggest counter argument to bringing one of these is that, oh, I have a flashlight on my phone. If you aren't hands-free when you're navigating out of the crag, especially if it has like some steps that are over rocks, which that happens a lot, or you have to like climb in or out of something, having a headlamp is so much better because you can manage your hands. The other thing, just from an emergency case, if someone gets hurt and you have to stay out and wait for rescue or deal with the situation at dark, if you can't really have a flashlight with your hand and, you know, treat a wound or treat a subject. So I would highly recommend getting a headlamp. And then the 201 version of this is always make sure it's charged and bring extra batteries. So this thing runs off batteries, but it also has another battery that comes with it. And I try to always bring both of those, especially if I'm going somewhere, far from home, far from the road. Headlamp, boom. Appropriate shoes. So once again, this is about getting to and from the climb. Like I said, I rock Nikes for the first while. That's why this is in the, well, this isn't in the optional section, but I would say it's in the optional section. Having like a good pair of hiking shoes. I used to wear like leather big hiking shoes that are traditional hiking shoes. Now I wear these. These are kind of like trail runner X hiking shoes. If you just walk from your car 100 feet on a paved or like gravel road and then you're at the climb, doesn't really matter. But if you're gonna have a bit of an approach, or you don't know if you're gonna have a bit of an approach, I'd grab some kind of sturdy shoe. Ideally, in Canada at least, in the US, Vibram soles are great for tread, especially if you're going down or up something and don't want to slip. So appropriate shoes for approach. They call it approach when you're walking up to the climb. Communication device. My phone is recording this, so I can't show you my phone, but some kind of communication device where you can communicate, and that is in case of an emergency, not so you can post to social media, but you can do that too. The caveat here is a phone will only work if it has service. So some places do not have service. I'm really lucky out here. A lot of our climbing areas do, but some don't. In that case, you can look into satellite communication devices. It's a whole nother can of worms, but have some kind of communication device and make sure it's charged. If you're one of those people your phone's always dying, it's not going to help you if your buddy breaks his leg and then your phone is dead and that's the only phone you have, right? So make sure it's charged. Make sure you have that. Mini med kit. I'm not going to get into the specifics on what is in my med kit, but I'll tell you a couple things that I think if you're going to bring nothing else, bring that. Hand warmers, so little like things that you shake and break and then they are warm. A triangular bandage, which is the thing to sling your arm. A splint, which is something that you can, if you don't know how to use this stuff, it doesn't matter, but you can just look into these things. Splint, so you can, if someone breaks their leg or arm, you can secure that to get out safely. Alcohol pads, so cleaning wounds. I found this is the one I use the most in this, is if I get a big scrape or cut, or just something is like gouged in me, then I'm able to clean it out, because sometimes I have to drive pretty far to get to my house. And then I have a couple zip ties, gauze, Band-Aids, all that stuff. Guidebook or information about the climb. Before I get into the book, which is a great thing, if you already know the area that you're climbing in, or you're going with someone who already knows like this climbs this climbs this, then you don't need a physical device. If you don't know the area, or you want to explore, you can get something called a guidebook. I'll probably make a video on this entirely as well. But basically a guidebook is something that has all of the routes in the area and their grades and a little description. At least that's generally what I've seen in the 10-20 guidebooks that I've purchased. Really great to have. Yeah, I'd put that on your list, because sometimes if you forget this, it makes it a lot harder. You can also go on websites like Mountain Project or The Crag and find information about a climbing area, and I would just screenshot those and have them already saved in your phone. That way you can reference them without having to go to the internet, which can be slow in some of these climbing areas. All right, so now we're in the optional. Stick clip. This is optional. Didn't have this for the first couple of years I was climbing. Basically, this allows you to clip the first bolt on a climb without having to climb up to it. So one of the most risky things when you're in sport climbing is getting to the first and second bolt, sometimes the third, because when you fall from there, there's nothing under you to protect, so you can fall to the ground. So this basically telescopes out, and I can put a quick draw and rope in this, and then clip the first bolt. I purchased this for like $100. I was pretty broke at the time, so it was a lot for me, but I wish I purchased it sooner because I took some risks before that. But snacks, food, water. I was thinking about putting this as mandatory, just because water and fuel can be important. But if you're only going out for an hour or two and that you're having a meal after or something, it doesn't matter as much. But I always bring water. I bring this puppy most of the time, which is like a big 1.5 liter water bottle. If you're gonna bring bars, that's a good one. Or if you're gonna bring snacks, we'll talk a little bit about how I bring my food in my backpack in a minute. Rope bag is this. Once again, we're in the optional section, so you don't need this. But this is just something that the rope can go in. See my rope back there? You put your rope in this. There's a big tarp that comes out of this, and the tarp basically lays on the ground, and then your rope is on that while you're managing it. So one, it keeps your rope from getting like wear. Two, sometimes there's little like rocks and sticks and the rope will catch around that, which is really bad for when you're trying to feed out rope and it's stuck and your climbers, trying to clip. No bueno. Those two are great for the actual operations. And then transporting, Basically, this one is a black diamond chute. It's like 50 bucks, I think, something like that. When you have your rope in here, it's got a little thing so you can sling it over your head, especially when you're starting out and you're just dumping stuff in your bag. You might fill up your bag and say, where do I put my rope? You can drape the rope over the back of the bag, but this just keeps it a lot more contained and makes it a little easier to travel with a rope. Sun protection, I didn't grab any of that, but basically sunscreen, hat, sunglasses. If you know you're in a sunny area and you have fair skin like myself, that's a good one. Climbing tape, so tape for your fingers. Climbing tape is specifically made to tape up fingers, and it's really, really great. It also lends well to the med kit if you need to like tape gauze to someone or something. So that's a good one to bring. If you are remote, as in you are far from bathrooms, you want to make sure you mitigate for that. So obviously, if you're doing number 1 or peeing, not a big deal. If you do have to do a number 2/poop, this is what I bring. So this is a small kit. It's got like a bunch of toilet paper in it. It's got a wag bag, which is basically something that allows you to poop into a bag and then you pack it up and it doesn't like leak or anything like that. So they're called WAG bags. Maybe I'll put that to the camera. I would grab one of those. You could probably grab it online if it's not your local store. And then I also bring hand sanitizers, so just dollar store, some hand sanitizers that after you do your business, you can clean your hands and not get people sick. Knife, I actually don't have my knife. It's with my chalk bag at the gym right now. But a really, really small knife, just in case you have to cut the rope. Really, the only time I've used that for single pitch climbing is if you damage the end of your rope, you can cut it off at the crag and you can keep climbing on it without having to like worry about that part of the rope. So that's why I bring a knife. That stuff was the optional stuff that I still recommend. Totally optional. We're in the totally optional section now. So these guys, they're called Alpine Draws. These are basically extendable quick draws that you can clip onto a bolt. Then you unclip one, clip the rope, boom, and it extends it out. So these are good for a couple reasons. One is for wandering routes or routes that go left and right a lot, because if you have a bolt here, here, and here, if you use the extension, it'll line up the rope better, which has a lot of benefits I won't get into right now. But I actually use these, believe it or not, as my personal anchor most of the time. So won't get into that now. Happy to field questions in the comments, but like basically I use this to clip into the fixed gear and then clip to my belay loop, and this is basically my personal anchor, but it doubles as extending quick draws if I need them. So I just love the versatility. Rappel device, I already showed you one of these as a belay device, but this can also be used as a rappel device. So this is a Black Diamond ATC. It's a guide mode one, so it has this little loop here. You don't need that for rappelling, but you do need a tube style device that fits 2 ropes into it. Rappelling is its own can of worms. I won't get into all of it now, but basically I always bring this, especially when I'm in new areas. The only time I don't bring this is if I know I'm climbing in a spot. Usually it's when I've climbed there before and there's no rappelling. But I'll tell you a quick story of why I bring this all the time. I was climbing in Smith Rock, which is in Oregon, USA. I was climbing with my brother. Brother's pretty inexperienced. I'm like setting up everything, but we always had this in our backpack and we were lugging them around for like 3 days. I thought it was kind of silly, but I knew, maybe we'll have to rappel. Maybe we'll want to do a multi-pitch and have to rappel. And we actually ended up on a path down. We were just exploring, and we got to this cliff that dropped like 30 feet down, so there's no way you can hike down. We looked to the left, and there's 2 bolts and a rappel station. And luckily, we just had these on us. So I think when you're exploring new areas, it just opens up a lot. And I was so glad we had these, because otherwise we would have had to hike back up this like big area and it would have sucked. Okay, belay glasses are these. If you don't know what these are kind of funky. These are coming way more into play these days. When I started 10 years ago, it's like kind of niche, but basically when you're belaying someone, you have to crank your head up, especially if they're on an overhang, that you have to crank your head up a lot. But these allow you to basically see. I'll show you, it's kind of a trippy thing to look at. See my eyes? So basically you can see up with these belay glasses. Water and food on the car ride home. This is a little experience trick for you. So I usually keep a water bottle full of water in my car, because I don't know about you guys, but I drink a lot of water. Like I got water right here, right now. So if you're like me, just throw some water in the car. These are the last 4 things, and these are actually what not to bring. Number 1 is glass. So when you're packing your food, everyone packs food differently, but this is glass. And the problem with this is when you throw your backpack down or it gets jumbled around, this can smash. And glass in nature, especially in like climbing areas that are a little less clean, can be really hard to clean up and just dangerous for the next people. So don't bring glass. You don't want anything that can leak easily. So if you have anything that's like kind of watery, you don't want something like this that can get squeezed and then crack open. There's so much climbing gear like you saw, so it'll get jumbled around your backpack, and I've spilled curry all over my old Quickdraws, so I don't want you to do that. What I do now, this is a GSI Outdoors Fair Share mug, and this is sweet because it's plastic, it's super sturdy, it's almost like a Nalgene water bottle, and then it's got gaskets in the top, so you can put something liquidy in here, like you can put a full-on soup in here. As long as you crank it tight, it's gonna hold up. And the last thing here is try not to carry stuff in your hands. So sometimes when I see newer climbers or people who are newer to the game and just haven't had so much experience outdoors, they have like grocery bags or just like handheld bags that they're carrying into the crag. And when you're stepping over those rocks and stuff, it makes it very difficult. So we're at the 30-minute mark pretty much here. So I'm gonna leave it there. That is all the equipment. I'll try to include this exact list wherever you were looking at this video. So feel free to look around for that. And thanks for watching. Cheers. Hey guys, if you made it to the end of this video, I assume you want to get into outdoor rock climbing. So I have something that's made specifically for you. I have a program doing just that. You get some support from me and my team. Look at the link in the description. You can learn all about it. It's called Rock Ready 30, and I would love to see you in there. Climb hard.